And you're on. Good afternoon,
Hold on.
Charlotte.
Good. I wanted to talk a little more about Newfoundland. It's a very beautiful country and not really known for tourists. It's beginning to be. But the beautiful part about it is it's very diverse. It has farms and it has open land and it has a sea coast. Of course, it's an island, completely surrounded. Yeah. And we were there in 51 and 52, and 52 and 53, and my parents all the way to 54. It was not a province. It was ruled by England. And now it is now a province. It also was the poorest, one of the poorest places anywhere in Canada. But their main line of income was fishing for cod. And of course, St. John's was the seaport, but there was also a lake right next to St. John's called Quidi Vidi Lake, and it was down, there were steep rocks like up you could climb. And that is where Marconi had his apparatus, and there's a big monument there now. Yeah. And it's very interesting. And another thing too, when I came up the first year for the summer, my father had rented a farmhouse in Tor Bay, and Tor Bay is right on the ocean, and it is just a tiny little farming town. And we were there waiting for a base housing, and we were there I was there the whole summer. They did move eventually, but I wasn't there then. And they moved on to the base and had a very nice house on the base with maids' quarters, and we had a maid, believe it or not. We didn't like her very much, and she didn't like us, but that's okay. The Newfoundlanders were not like most people. They were kind of resentful of us. And yet, if we weren't there, they'd be even poorer. But you know, that's always the way. Yeah. So then, when we moved on the base, Tor Bay was 18 miles from the base. Fortunately, they had a bus, so I was able to take a bus to work. But you couldn't swim anywhere. There was water everywhere, but no swimming because it was too darn cold. And even in our bay where we lived in Tor Bay, it's called Conception Bay, and I can remember the whole summer, almost until maybe September, there was an iceberg out there melting, and that had come down from Labrador, I suppose. But you couldn't swim anywhere, not even in Quidi Vidi Lake you couldn't swim. But it's a very lovely country, and my parents went all over it. Now Gander, of course, was a huge I don't think that's an Air Force base anymore at all. I don't think, is it? Do you know?
I don't know, but it was when I was in the Navy.
Yeah, but I'm not sure about it now, but I know that Newfoundland and a lot of those little towns back in 9/11, and some friends of mine who were in my bridge club were coming home from Scotland, and they, you know, an awful lot of people had to land immediately, and they hosted a lot of people coming back from Europe. In fact, they all got together and shared the food, and really it was very interesting. And they had just gotten on the plane from Scotland, and then that was it. And some of the people would work their way down, rent a car or something, and work their way down to the States. But it is a beautiful country, and the center of it is farming. And the very center of Newfoundland is called Bear. Mm-hmm. And again, a couple who also were in my bridge club were from Bear, Newfoundland. And they were so surprised because they knew there were no tourists going even then. But it is a place you ought to visit. You would enjoy. It's different. It's just different. And I certainly enjoyed it. And the second year, of course, I was on the base, so I could walk to work. The first year I worked at the as a waitress at the Officers Club for the summer. The second year, I was working in the post exchange on the base, so that was no problem. And it gave me some extra money, but then I was only there for the summer. And then I went back to college, and I finished out my second year, and then I didn't get married right away, but I got married in September of 1954.
Did you
And
work
I
in Newfoundland that summer or not?
Well, yeah, it was
The summer of 54?
Second year of college.
The summer before you got married, you were working in Newfoundland?
I was in Newfoundland the summer before I got married. I was there 2 years, 2 summers, 52 and 53, and then I got married.
And did you get married in Newfoundland?
No, I married in the States. Here,
Where?
at Staten Island.
Who was at your wedding?
There weren't many people. It was at a municipal building there, and the only one who was there was, she wasn't my roommate, but she was a good friend, also in college, same year as I am. And that's another story which I will tell because it's kind of interesting. We decided, her name was Ruth Graves, and we decided that we'd like to go to Florida on spring break. So we put a sign up on the bulletin board at Rutgers saying 2 women like to go to Florida, will pay expenses. And we get this phone call from this fella, and he said, well, how would you like to go in an airplane? He said, I've got a 1935 Piper Craft 5-passenger airplane, and we could fly down to Fort Lauderdale. And I had a boyfriend down there, by the way, Tom Eisenbeis, who I mentioned before. He was down there. So, and that's where I was going to stay. So we said, sure. You know, he said, well, the airplane is in North Wales, Pennsylvania, and you got to meet us there. So we had to rent a car. I remember that. Ruth drove. And I've never been in North Wales since or ever before. It was way out in Jabip, I thought. And we get out there, and here is this magnificent house and airstrip and a barn, the whole absolutely gorgeous place. And Ruth and I looked at each other and said, who is this guy? His name was not Stetson, his last name, but a maternal side, it was his grandfather who founded the Stetson Hat Company in Philadelphia, which of course was huge. Yeah. And since that time, I've learned that their mansion is down in Florida.
Wow.
And it's now a museum. So we were quite impressed. But anyway, we went in a 1935 Piper Cub airplane down to Fort Lauderdale, and we had a lovely time and went back. But they couldn't fly at night, so it took us almost as long to go down to the airplane as it did to drive. All right, here's